Hello, I'm Kristin. I'm the director of the Center for Sacred Window Studies, and I'm so happy to be here today with Soumya, Kristin, Renee of Mother Ayurveda Healing. And Soumya is based out of San Francisco, California. Soumya is a Center for Sacred Window Studies alum, and she is also one of our founding directory members, the Postpartum Care Collective. Soumya, thank you so much for sitting with me today.
Thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Of course. So I just am so excited to have conversations with some of our caregivers out there that are doing amazing work. And I guess I would just love for you to start out by talking a little bit about how you were drawn to working with mothers in Ayurveda and combining the two.
Absolutely. It actually stems from my personal experience becoming a mother. Shortly before becoming pregnant the first time, around 10 and a half years ago, I was struggling a lot with my own personal health and coming to a lot of dead ends and not finding the relief that I knew I could find. And I was very blessed to find an Ayurvedic practitioner, and her wisdom and care instantaneously resonated with me. And finally, I felt the relief that I was looking for. And then about 4 months later, I became pregnant and I had my daughter. And it was a really intense postpartum period for me, a very unexpected, intense postpartum period for me, feeling very maternal, being a nanny, having knowledge of holistic health. I felt like I thought I was prepared for the postpartum experience, and it was a really loud awakening to me that I was not. But I still felt that divine presence of a lot of compassion for myself and for all mothers. And I was very blessed to find an Ayurvedic teacher who became my guru, Acharya Soumya Ji of Vedika Global. And I decided to join the 1-year Ayurveda course on self-healing. And during that course, I actually became pregnant again. And I found out it was twins. And to make a long story short, I had an extremely different postpartum experience with twins, where I was able to apply all of the knowledge and all of the wisdom firsthand, and to have also the support of my classmates and my dear friends who were steeped in Ayurveda. And it just became very apparent to me that this was part of my path, and that if I could experience this firsthand and I know the tools of how Ayurveda can help women, then I have to share that wisdom. I have to share that light. And so it was just a very open calling for me that I accepted, and that I've decided to create a business that deeply supports women and fathers and children so that they can have a postpartum experience that is healing for them, and that they can have that sacred time that doesn't happen any other time in their entire lives.
Oh my gosh, I feel like that is I share so much synchronicity with your story and my own story. Um, and it is such a motivator when we've experienced the hardship or the confusion or the sort of unexpected difficulty, when you felt so prepared going into it and then it didn't turn out the way you were expecting it to. And then conversely, you would think about someone in their postpartum window after having twins, it's bound to be harder, but then to have that be the transformative, you know, reawakening to, oh, this is how it actually can be. That is amazing.
Yes. And then so I still study with the same teacher. So I've studied Ayurveda for 10 years now, a solid decade. And then I joined the Center for Sacred Window in 2019 when I was pregnant the third time, but with my fourth child. And at that time, I had learned a lot about postpartum care. But then when I joined the Center of Sacred Window and the cohort that I joined, my knowledge of Ayurveda and the postpartum deepened so deeply. And then I was able to apply that to my most recent experience. My son just turned 1 year old. And so it's been reconfirmed and I've been reawakened. And so when I share this wisdom with mothers, it's really beautiful to see how ancient wisdom can be applied in modern day age, but can be applied in a way that is so supportive to the needs of society while supporting the needs of families. And that also is what really excites me.
Oh, I love that. I do feel so strongly that the Ayurvedic principles are so timeless, and we can find, I mean, it just describes the human experience and how to create harmony in that human experience. And I agree. I feel like it's so beautiful to be able to meet families just where they are and be able to apply the principles to their caregiving and work with like literally any type of situation. We can help such a great deal by interweaving this conscious type of care. I would love to know a little bit about, as a mom to 4 children, how do you approach your professional practice?
Yes, so that's always a constant struggle. And again, it goes back to the Ayurvedic principles of dinacharya and ritucharya, and the dinacharya being the daily practice. And how do I stay grounded in myself, which requires waking up early, which with 4 kids, that's inevitable. And how I start my day and drinking my warm water and focusing on gratitude or saying a mantra, doing some pranayama. There's various tools and various ways, but how I start my morning, and I'm not saying that it happens like that every single morning, but there's a big difference when I start my morning that way. And particularly with our daily diet. So I focus a lot of my family's day around our meals and around our diet and around healthy eating, and that's been embedded in my children since day one. And so they fully accept it. They realize it's supporting their growth, it's supporting their development. And so we prepare all of our snacks. We make sure if we're going out for the day that we have what we need to make the right healthy choices. My daughter is helping out. My sons help out when they're in the mood to help out. But we work together. And then we also base our day and our plans according to the seasons and according to the Ayurvedic principles of, when is a good time to be out in nature, when is a good time to retreat and to be more inwards. And with ritucharya and dinacharya, it also takes a village. That very, powerful statement that it takes a village. So calling in on friends that align with our values and our beliefs, and friends that support us, and neighbors and family, and not feeling afraid to reach out for help. And building community, and then using the Vedantic principles of oneness, and that we are all interdependent on one another. So building our community that empowers us and that keeps us peaceful and in harmony. And the number one thing with all of that is spending as much time as possible outside. I feel like with my children, anytime we're indoors for too long, the chaos starts to get higher and higher. So we take care of ourselves in the morning. We get out as soon as we can. We spend as much time as we can outdoors. And then when we come back inside, we try to stay inwards and do artwork or do audio stories, and have more activities that bring more calming. So that's the ideal, and that's always the hope, and that's always the plan. And then just adjusting and whatever comes up, just holding space. And I think one of the most powerful things for me is tapping into the mother consciousness. And my teacher always shares like the practice of Navratri and the 9 goddesses, like falling into the lap of the Divine Mother whenever we feel helpless, whenever we feel frustrated, whenever we feel angry, all of the various emotions that human beings and especially mothers deal with, just falling into the lap of the Divine Mother and asking for her support. I do that very, very often.
Oh my gosh, I do that as well, and I have not described it as that in those words, but that is so beautiful. It's so much of what you're describing here is so beautifully interwoven with what we teach our caregivers in our program, is really creating gentle routines that align with the day, that align with the moment, that align with the time of life that they're in, asking for help and acknowledging community. And that can be really hard. That can be really hard in this, very busy, independent culture that we live in. Um, What would you say when you're working with families in support of postpartum care? What would you say is the greatest need that you find when you're working with families?
I think it's empowerment, and I think it's holding space for them and also reminding them of what they are doing. I think especially for first-time parents, the sleep deprivation is the hardest thing to handle. And I think often the fathers are unsure how to help out. And so there's kind of this disconnect I've seen a lot where the fathers know that there's so much help that the mother needs, but unsure of how to help and how to be the best way to support. So I always make sure to honor the fathers. While of course I'm focused on the mother and the baby, I always make sure to take time. And if it's two women, honoring the mother that did not birth the child. So always acknowledging the other partner and really working closely with them. Like, do you want to watch me while I'm cooking? I can show you some very simple recipes. So really honoring their power and their role in holding the family together. But I think a lot of it also goes back to what you guys teach us in the cohort, which is the mother principles, and trying to keep things as simple for them as possible, but also as organized as possible. And by organized, I mean having a plan. So when I work with families, when I arrive, I check in with them, see how they're doing, and then I go and make enough food for lunch and dinner, because normally I'm arriving around 10 a.m. if the schedule allows. And then letting them know like what the daily diet is for them. Like, so you'll eat this, and I write everything down. And so they're not having to remember. So it's almost like in some ways I'm their mother. I'm there to reassure them that everything is beautiful. They're doing exactly what they should be doing. I'm there to hold space for them, to allow them to voice whatever they're experiencing, whatever emotions are rising, and then to create a plan and foundation for them so that when I leave, they feel supported. They know what they have to do. The food is on the stove and they feel secure. So again, it's like bringing that Mother Earth foundation energy and physical food to their bodies and to their minds and to their spirits.
So beautiful. How do you feel? I know for myself, when I was lucky enough to be cared for by someone who, knew the recipes and I didn't have that for the first go around. And so I noticed a big difference for myself when I did, but there's that inner peace that just sort of expands when you realize that someone's got you, that you're just being taken care of. What is in in your experience when you observe working with these families, how do they how is their healing compared to, say families that you've seen or worked with who have not had extra support during the postpartum window?
It seems to be a lot more frenetic and a lot more chaotic. And also, I mean, sometimes ignorance is bliss when they don't have any options and they don't have any support, and they look at society as a basis for what postpartum can look like. I mean, sometimes I see women 10 days postpartum on a walk post C-section with their child, and I check in with them and I ask them how they're doing. They're like, I feel great, and it was a hard labor, but I'm back at it, and I'm walking and I'm exercising, and in my heart, and I'm trying to be as non-judgmental as possible. And in my heart, I send them love, I send them energy, I give them my email, my contact information if anything comes up. But then when I work directly with families and they allow themselves to be where they are, you can really sense and feel the tenderness. And that even when things are going beautifully and the breastfeeding is going well and they're healing well and they're getting rest when they can, there's still so much raw tenderness and needs, that it's very fascinating to see that every postpartum experience, the needs of the mother and the baby are so great. And that even with support and even with a postpartum doula, I think the reality is things are always harder than you can anticipate. But not in a bad way, just in the reality of the changes that are happening on every level, on the mind, the body, and the spirit. The amount of love and the amount of your heart being open, and just you're seeing your child and holding your child, and the flood of emotions that come with that is, as you guys coined it so perfectly, it's the most sacred window in your entire life. So of course you're going to be so raw, you're going to be so open, you're going to be so tender. And so that's why the Ayurveda wisdom, I feel like, is unparalleled to the postpartum experience.
It just really helps us to understand that that it takes time. It takes time to integrate this magnificence. And you're right, even when someone does have the support, they're still going to need to go through all those layers and levels of processing and digesting on, a heart level, on a mental level, on a physical level, that it really deserves all the time it takes to let it happen as it needs to happen. And I think it's so beautiful that that you are doing what you're doing, and that you're able to bring your own personal experiences with your own children and your own life, and move that into your practice. And what I suspect is that because you have such a thoughtful, committed foundation for how to create balance within yourself. And I know as a mother of four myself that it is hard, and it's, nonstop sometimes. And, at the beginning of our conversation today, it was, this is, everything is great, but it's crazy. I know
Yes.
that. And so there can be an understanding of the craziness is okay.
Absolutely. Yes. And when we're grounded and when we're connected to nature and connected to the Great Spirit, it's it's easier to take the bird's eye view, like we were discussing. Like when we're stuck in the mundane and the day-to-day and all of the responsibilities, it can seem very overwhelming. But then when we take the bird's eye view, we are reminded of how abundant and how many blessings there actually are in the chaos and in the struggles and in all of the challenges.
Yeah, it's truly all part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was thinking last night, and I wrote something last night about how I feel like each time that I went through that sacred window, it uncovered a little bit more of what sacred meant for me. And it sort of really doesn't ever leave. I feel like those weeks that we spend when babies are first born, when we get to work with families. It's such an honor to be in that space with them. It's such an intimate opportunity that we have, and that stays with a person for their whole lives.
For
It's
their, yes.
never that how they were cared for or whatever happened in those first weeks. I mean, when I look back, they're all a little bit foggy, but there are these moments of like crystal clear perfection that I will never ever forget, and I feel like has shaped who I am.
Absolutely. And that really was pertinent to me this last postpartum, being a postpartum doula and having all this knowledge. I'm like, okay, I couldn't be any more prepared for this postpartum experience. And what I found was I didn't want to do the sleep training, which I had done with my other three kids for various reasons. And part of me was asking myself, am I making the right decision? Am I setting him up for bad habits? But I just felt intuitively called to hold him through his naps at night for the first 9 months, actually. And I just savored each and every one of those moments. And of course, that meant less things were getting done. There was a lot more responsibility on my husband for our other three kids, friends, but it all actually aligned because I was so committed to having these bonding experiences. And as soon as my son started crawling at 9 months, and I've heard that that's when your child can crawl away from you at 9 months, that's when the final chord of the two of you being one symbiosis is finally cut, and now they're their own person. He completely changed developmentally, and he's so in the world being the fourth child and just who he is, that now I'm like, thank goodness I took all of that opportunity and I was compassionate and allowed myself to do that, because now for the rest of our lives, I have those moments that I will forever cherish. And I wasn't in a rush to get back to things looking a certain way.
Oh, I love that. It kind of makes me feel like I want to get teary thinking about it because it does go so quick. But I think what sticks out to me right there is that you listened to your inner voice, you listened to your intuition, and you knew that it didn't have to look one specific way. It could look how it felt right to look. And that's, I feel like if we can help birthers to listen to their intuition and trust themselves, then that's the most amazing piece of the work that we get to do.
Exactly. I think it all comes back to empowerment. We're just, all of this work is just connecting with ancient wisdom to empower ourselves to realign with our true selves that are always there, that are always accessible, but that we just forget due to our busyness and due to our responsibilities and distractions.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this with me. I am so excited to share your story with the wider community and just bring more awareness in general to this whole beautiful other side of postpartum wellness and recovery. And I feel a real movement all around us of people who are speaking up and for postpartum care that's about feeling great and not about feeling, the challenges or feeling depressed. We have such this beautiful opportunity, a truly sacred window of time that imagine, if people are taken care of, if people are mothered during those weeks on a culture-wide level, how that could change the world.
Indeed. And that's the best blessing is there's such a wise, interconnected web of women and our ancestors. There's just a huge web of ancestral wisdom that is there to support us in so many different ways. And so it's truly an honor to be part of the Center of Sacred Window and for you guys to take the time to talk with me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you so much, Soumya.
Thank you. Blessings.